Hey everybody, it's Dina. How are you? If it's been a while for some of us, right? I've been off and sort of took a break from this app, but I have kept growing and kept expanding and evolving, and my life has really I've quantum leapt, right? And so I'm excited to come in here and be back here and reconnect with a lot of you, and a lot of you that don't know who I am. Hi, I'm Dina, and I'm a spiritual mentor and a channel, and I love helping middle-aged people in those transitions of career, just sometimes just restlessness. Sometimes it's that calling, like, oh, I know I'm meant to do something. I know there's something that, my higher self, or I have this like drive inside, and I know that there's something more, right? Sort of like your soul's purpose, right? And a lot of times in midlife, we're going through relationship, right? Everything changes a lot, right? Because if we have children, we have sometimes that empty nest, lots of transitions. Look, life is always changing. And circumstances will keep circumstancing. And what my work does is I take a blend of neuroscience and quantum principles, spirituality, all kind of, because if we don't really understand why we're doing things, for me at least, it always helps me to understand the why, right? So when we talk about awakening, because I love helping people to realize that you are on an awakening path and an evolution, whether you know it or not, right? Some people are never going to awaken in this 3D reality, and that's okay. That's their evolution for this lifetime. Some people are not meant to, and that's okay. And a part of evolving and going deeper in the dimensions is understanding that everybody gets to be where they are, right? Today I wanted to talk a little bit about, because this has been on my mind so much, and I feel like this was something that was really holding not only myself back in my life, but a lot of my clients too, right? Because when we're talking about females, we're talking about, we have a lot of responsibilities, and society and conditioning can keep us in this like overly responsible ego. Right? When we think about the ego, we're like, oh, I'm not in my ego anymore. I'm not doing judgments. But we're not really paying attention to, are we identifying with an ego that is keeping us in burnout? What do I mean by that? So a lot of us women, especially spiritual women, we tend to be empathic. Men are empathic too, right? So we're very hyper aware of everyone else's emotions around us. We've been conditioned to be the caregivers, right? Not just with our children, but to keep everything at a level, right? To keep everything moving smoothly, keeping everybody happy, right? A lot of times we were the peacekeepers in our own home, even as children, right? So a lot of the signs of an overly responsible ego are feeling like we are internalizing, and we are internalizing everyone else's emotions, right? That's a very empathic thing. And if we don't know how to manage that, thank you so much for the likes, it can lead to exhaustion, because we can feel like we're having a hard time discerning between, are these our emotions and feelings, or are they someone else's? And unless you live on your own for about a 2-month period or more, you're not really going to self-regulate that easily, right? Another one is blurred boundaries, right? That's a big one. It can be hard to distinguish between our own emotions, like I just said, and the needs from other people, right? So we're very susceptible to the emotions around us. Now, we've heard that saying, we women are only as happy as our least happy child. That's a good example of a blurred boundary, right? We're not responsible for other people's emotional states. That doesn't mean that as parents, as mothers, we don't care about where our kids are. We're not going to, put some thought into that, but we don't need to take it on, right? And say, this is why I'm unhappy, right? So another one that's big is compulsive rescuing, right? Always having that need, right? Somebody's unhappy, we will put everything down, and we will do everything that we can do to turn that around for somebody. It makes us a beautiful human being, but it can also leave us putting our own needs and desires on the back burner, right? And a lot of times it's at a huge expense to ourselves, right? We could be ready to go out and do something with our friends, and if somebody comes home and they've had a bad day, we will more than likely put our stuff on the back burner, right? So the other one that's pretty obvious is not being able to say no, right? A lot of people that I know, women, they will never say no. Oftentimes, though, they don't end up doing what they say they're going to do. They mean well, they just don't know how to say no, right? And this can leave you breaking, kind of, friendships break down, relationships break down, right? Because we feel guilty if we prioritize our own well-being. Yesterday, I had somebody, that wanted to do something, and it's lovely. It's a great, sometimes I do want to do it, but I just knew I needed to do some things and get some things done. So at the risk of perhaps making this person feel like I didn't want to spend time with them, I'm not responsible for if that's their reaction. I don't want them to have that, right? But I'm not responsible for it, right? And so we tend to start to neglect ourselves, our own physical, and this can be true of not just women who have children. This can be true of when we're an adult, but our parents can put us in this role, right? So our own emotional and physical health suffers, right? Because we're constantly focused on other people's needs. It's not healthy. Another big one that we do, and we don't always realize that we're doing, is shape-shifting, right? I love spiritual shape-shifting, but what we're talking about is unconsciously, and sometimes we're doing it consciously. Let's be honest, adapting our behavior or aspects of our personality to align with people around us for acceptance, right? That's what happens to us in childhood, right? I can remember having a friend come over and, playing Barbie dolls and when I was younger, and she was like, oh my God, playing with dolls is so babyish, right? And so I was like, oh, how embarrassing, I'm a baby to my friends. And so I wouldn't let my friends know that I still played with Barbies, right? That's conditioning, guys. That's like putting what you like to do on the back to be accepted. That's what happens. But this is the conditioning that gets us to identify with the ego, and therefore we're not really fully enjoying our lives, right? And we can sometimes blur the lines between other people's needs and our own, right? We've all been there. And a lot of us are still there. And we don't equate this with the ego. But somewhere along the line, we were conditioned and we have beliefs that this is what is expected of us. This is what makes us a good mother, a good daughter, a good friend, a good wife, a good girlfriend. And that it's not always conscious. Most of the time, it's in the subconscious, right? So also we can choose to be around people and continue to choose to be around people that we know aren't healthy for us. We know it. Sometimes we're staying married to people that we know are high maintenance and are constantly leaving us depleted and fatigued. And that's not healthy either. But there again, neuroscience, the brain always wants to keep us in a familiar loop, right? Even we will choose the familiar even if it limits us and we don't even like it. So be easy on yourself. It's not always easy to see this, right? And a lot of this I call the good girl syndrome, right? We were taught this when we were younger. Oh, be a good girl and just go do what I'm asking you to do. Be a good girl and be quiet. Be a good girl, you're being too loud, right? All those things, right? So we can end up having difficulty voicing our own needs. And sometimes with a lot of my clients, they don't even know what they like because they've stuffed it down so much, right? Because we spent a lifetime prioritizing others. And often it just starts in childhood. And we sometimes don't even know what our needs are. If we do, we don't know how to express them, right? So we get this burnout syndrome where we're just we don't want to go through life just doing the things that we think are expected of us. We want to live our life. And so we not only need to understand that we're identifying with the ego and begin to take that power away, right? So when we start feeling I don't want to say no, is that you? Obviously it's not, because otherwise you would just say yes. But if you're I don't want to say no, then there's a part of you that's separate, right? You're observing the thought. you're observing your kind of thought where the mind is taking you like, oh, I can't say no. Because you want to say no, right? So there's distance between those two thoughts, right? You are not your thoughts. So we need to really become more aware that's not you, that's your ego. Because we think of the ego as like this evil, mean, you know, and yeah, a lot of times there's a lot of that, but a lot of us that are spiritually awakened and evolving, and we don't identify these certain things with the ego because we think it's our identity. I'm just an overgiver. Are you? Or have you been conditioned to think that that's what makes you a good person? Because if you are sitting there going, if somebody calls you and asks you to do something and you have space in between that, meaning you say, oh, I can't say no, but I want to. There's a space. You're identifying with that section of your ego. That's still your ego because it's attached to a set of beliefs and conditioning. Because the essence of you is like, I don't want to say no, but I want to say no, but I can't say no. It's the ego that's making you believe you can't say no, right? So I work with a lot of women, and a lot of my clients go through this, right, guys? This is what's keeping you from those 100K months. This is what's keeping you small. And a lot of times we have a great life on paper. We're very successful. And there's this one area because we haven't been able to identify that this is draining us and keeping us from using our energy for the things that we really want to spend our energy on, that will move our life forward in the ways that we do. And we're self-sabotaging ourselves, not consciously, it's subconsciously. So is there an identity out there that, you know, that this conversation has sparked and went, wow, right? Think back into your childhood. What are some of the things that you heard growing up, right? Just some of the things that I mentioned. Oh, just be, you know, sit quietly and keep that to yourself, or don't bring that up to your, you know, like it's our job to keep everybody calm, right? A lot of that happens when you have a stay-at-home mom and then a dad who works, and when he comes home, everybody's supposed to just keep everything like, right? But a lot of times we get the messages that, you know, oh, you're such a good girl, you know, you always behave so nicely, right? So then that's a great compliment, but it can also be a weight on our shoulders. Like, oops, you know, the subconscious can go, oh, they count on you for that. They count on you for being Susie Sunshine and always being happy and never having a problem. Keep that problem to yourself, because then you're not living up to that identity, right? So it can be something so simple and loving that somebody does that the ego can take a snapshot of, and now it's in our subconscious. Like, oops, nope, I want people to like me. People love me when I'm happy. Will they love me if I'm not, right? I had a client say to me the other day, everybody always says they love, you know, my new friends say they love being around me because I'm so zen. So I didn't want to go do something today because I was feeling a little down. I didn't want to do something with them. And I was like, wait, why? You know, and she's like, because I don't know, like, basically like, well, it just didn't, you know, I didn't feel like I could keep up that zen, right? And so I had to pull it so she could see it. That, in other words, she was thinking, they might not like me. I'm not good enough if I'm not keeping that up, right? So she was putting her own needs of wanting to be around people, because she had a fear that if she showed that she wasn't zen all the time, that either they would see her as someone different and they maybe might not like her. So anyway, I wanted to keep this short. This was just something that's been on my mind because I see it over and over again with extremely successful women, that they are exhausted and they're just like, wait, I don't have time, and I feel guilty if I take the time. And it's because you're having an identity with an ego, right? So, hey Dominique, hey Melinda, love to you guys. So I am going to cut it at that. I will be coming out probably around the same time daily, except for tomorrow, because I'm moving a couple streets down from where I am in Playa del Carmen. So if anyone would like to know how I do this and what working with me might look like, message me. I would love to get in contact with you. Love to you all. Have a great day.